some strange stuff going on as far as EVs are concerned in this province, in this country. So, of course, Quebec had its own EV rebates, which were going so well that they decided, we're going to have to cut this off early. So come February, what was it originally? 7,000 went to 4,000, down to 2,000, and it's going to go away for a couple of months, I think. But then federally, the situation was a little bit different. Ottawa suddenly announced at the end of the week that their rebate program for EVs, electric cars, basically ran out of money. They'd only set aside so much. Things were going so well, I guess. People were buying EVs and these rebates were being used that I guess they didn't budget very well. But they decided, we got no money left. But they did this basically on the flip of a coin. They'd indicated that, we're not going to have enough money to let this run forever or for as long as we'd anticipated, but then all of a sudden pulled the plug, leaving everyone in the lurch, including dealers and customers. So what's going on? Let's try to find out. David Adams is president and CEO of Global Automakers of Canada. Mr. Adams, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Aaron. Appreciate it.
Can you fill in some blanks here? Because there are a lot of people scratching their heads today trying to understand what happened here.
Well, it really is a situation where we knew that the fund was, ending, really, if you will, at the end of March and potentially being recapitalized, but got notification on Friday that the burn rate of the fund was faster than the government had anticipated and that they only had $70 million left in the fund, and the previous 3 months, each month had burned through about $100 million. So, reasonable math would suggest that they might have a couple of weeks left in the program. Caught us all a little bit off guard, but okay, now we know what the situation is a little bit. But then we got another email from Transport Canada on Monday saying, sort of less than 2 business days later, they've suddenly run out of money and burned through that $70 million. So lots of questions and not a lot of answers at this point, unfortunately.
Well, that's pretty good spending, huh? 2 days, $70 million? That's well done. I guess my next question is, what happened? So are there people, as I said, left in the lurch here? You went ahead, you made a deal to buy one of these cars, assuming that money would be coming to you. What happens to that? Do we know?
Well, it truly is a matter of good faith, and we're expecting the government to do the right thing by not only dealers who are sort of acting as the government's agents, but more importantly for consumers, because government has made it clear that any claim, if you will, that was submitted by a dealer Monday morning, that would be fine and would be processed. But if dealers hadn't filed the paperwork as of Monday morning, when they didn't even know the program was going to be ending, then those dealers and those consumers are out of luck. So it's an unfair, it's an unjust outcome, and we're currently working with Transport Canada to try and rectify that.
So you've had no confirmation that, in fact, that would happen, but maybe it's too early since this all happened really just a couple of days ago, I guess. But am I to understand that the way this rebate works is if you go to a dealer, you buy yourself an EV, that government rebate comes from the dealer, and then the dealer has to get that back from the government?
Essentially, that's the way it works, yes.
Okay. So the dealers are the ones right now anyway, unless the situation changes, who are out all this money.
Well, correct. And let's face it, Transport Canada has not always been timely, even before the end of the program. So, their service standards aren't really robust. And dealers, frankly, a lot of them are waiting, a number of days, weeks, months to be refunded the money that they fronted for the consumer.
I wonder, too, though, given that, the program has been as successful as it has, because with all this money going out, it means people are buying EVs. Without these incentives, is the concern that people simply won't do it anymore because they'll become cost prohibitive?
Well, that's the evidence that we've seen. We had an EV program in Ontario up until 2018. It was very generous at $14,000, and what we saw is when that program was pulled back, basically, EV sales dropped like a stone, and we expect that that's likely to happen in Quebec and really right across Canada.
So what does that do to the mandates? Here in Quebec, I think we're still at 2030, although I don't know. It might be 2035 when everyone's mandated to drive an EV. Does this change anything, do you think?
Well, I think our proposition to the government would be, look, you've eliminated the mandates to help facilitate reaching these targets, and they also haven't built out the infrastructure to the extent that's required. So if you're not going to do both of those things, then it's also contingent on you to revisit the vehicle sales mandates that you've imposed on the vehicle manufacturers and, frankly, ultimately on consumers.
You know, to your point just now about infrastructure, and I remember reading something about this, which came as a complete surprise. You'd think with the government saying we want to have everybody driving an EV, that infrastructure, at least the building of it, would be, job number one. That's not been the case, has it?
No, it hasn't. And really, most people don't know, but the federal government needs to be building out, needs to be building out 110 charging stations every day between now and 2035, and that's not going to happen.
Are we even close to that? I mean, or are we at a fraction of that?
We're at a fraction of that, to be honest.
So you buy yourself an EV, and the charging stations, depending on where you happen to live, are not there, which I guess at the end of the day is going to make some people wonder, why am I buying an EV after all?
Yes, it undermines their confidence for sure in purchasing a vehicle.
So where do we go? I mean, what's the outlook here as far as EVs go in Canada? What are you seeing? What are you projecting?
Well, we're projecting that the government sales targets under the federal ZEV mandate won't be met, and even more aggressive targets set by the Quebec government at 85% EV sales by 2030, and BC 90% by 2030 are certainly not going to be met. So, again, if those targets are going to be met, then the government really needs to revisit the mandate.
What about, I was wondering too about manufacturers, because a lot of, I imagine what happens here is you can price a car in Canada, and I realize I was in Mexico not that long ago, and the Chinese company, BYD, I guess, are big in the electric car market, right? There are dealerships already there. And of course, in Canada, we've imposed a duty, so those cars are not coming in here anytime soon. And if they are, they're not going to be any less expensive than what you could buy here, I guess, anyway. Do you see manufacturers in this sector going ahead and saying, you know what, these mandates or these rebates are all gone, we're going to have to start dropping prices, otherwise we're going to lose market share?
Well, manufacturers have a lot of options, and, look, I suppose there's some margin there where manufacturers could drop their prices, but the reality is most manufacturers have no margins on EV vehicles anyway. They're currently losing money on those vehicles, and that's not a long-standing business proposition.
Wow, so they're losing money on EVs just to be in the market. So, I mean, it makes it sound like that, if you're losing money and you continue to lose money, why are you still making EVs?
Right.
Is there an answer to that question? I mean, are we looking at the end of EVs at some point here? How's that going to work?
No, let's be clear. The full long-term direction is electrified transportation, but the reality at the end of the day is that we're in a situation where the uptake is just a little bit slower than everybody was expecting. So we've got to work our way through that.
So you're still optimistic for the market itself for EVs?
Ultimately, in the long term, yes.
One last question before I let you go. With respect to, as I said, cheaper EVs, the ones you buy in Canada, whether they're Teslas or any of the major Japanese or even American automakers, are fairly expensive cars. I understand there are cheaper EVs around in other parts of the world. Why aren't they here, do you think?
Well, they're not here because the government has put tariffs on vehicles coming into Canada because we want to provide the North American automotive industry the opportunity to build out their EV ecosystem so we can build EVs here and employ Canadians here. And I think that those two things need to be balanced, the price of the vehicles and jobs and employment in Canada.
But if you're one of those manufacturers who's already selling EVs here, whatever your price point is, I'm assuming those same manufacturers, at least from what I read, are selling their branded cars, but less expensive ones in other markets. Why not here?
No, that's not the case.
Is it not?
No.
Okay. I was under, like, say, Nissan, for example, has an EV, right? And the model they sell in Canada sells for, I don't know what, $45,000, but you can go to France and buy one of those, and it costs $25,000 because it's the same company but a smaller car, different car.
Yeah. No, well, they may have a different model available in the European market that's not available here.
Which is the question of why not, but we'll leave that for another time. I thank you so much. Right. Appreciate your time this afternoon.
Thanks, Aaron.
David Adams, President, CEO of Global Automakers of Canada. By the way, if you are the customer and you went ahead and bought a car within the last few days, an EV, and then the dealer finds out that, they're not going to be able to get that $5,000 or whatever it happens to be back from the government, which is how it stands right now, you're the winner. I guess the dealer is the loser on this one.